So,
Of the three champions, who would you like to fight and why?
fight anybody my trainer put me in with because I'm confident I could beat any fighter in the world.
Las Vegas, July 29th, 1999. The crowd had come to see chaos, not the slow-burning tension of a tactical boxing match, not a battle of endurance. They came to see one man, the most feared heavyweight of his era, return to the ring and remind the world that he was still the baddest man on the planet. Mike Tyson was boxing's ultimate force of nature. Even after prison, even after controversy, even after the infamous disqualification against Evander Holyfield, when Tyson stepped through the ropes, there was always the feeling that something unforgettable was about to happen. And on this night, it did. But not in the way anyone expected. Across the ring stood Orlin Norris, a former cruiserweight champion, a skilled veteran, and a man few believed had any real chance of surviving Tyson's storm. The odds were stacked against him. The expectations were clear. Most fans thought this would be another brutal Tyson knockout. Instead, the fight ended in confusion. One late punch, one injured knee, one official ruling that left everyone stunned. No winner, no loser, just controversy. More than 2 decades later, Tyson versus Norris remains one of the strangest fights in boxing history. A contest that lasted less than 3 minutes yet still raises questions to this day. Was Norris genuinely hurt? Did Tyson rob fans of a spectacular knockout? Or was this bizarre ending simply inevitable whenever Mike Tyson was involved? This is the story of the weirdest Mike Tyson fight ever. To understand why this fight became so bizarre, you first have to understand where Mike Tyson was in 1999. By the end of the 1980s, Tyson had seemed almost invincible. He was the youngest heavyweight champion in history, a wrecking ball in black trunks with explosive speed, brutal power, and an aura that intimidated opponents before the opening bell even rang. Under the guidance of Cus D'Amato and later Kevin Rooney, Tyson developed one of the most devastating styles boxing had ever seen. Constant head movement, sharp angles, and vicious hooks to the body and head made him more than just a knockout artist. At his best, Tyson was a technical masterpiece disguised as a destroyer. But by 1999, that version of Tyson was long gone. His downfall had been dramatic. In 1990, he suffered one of the greatest upsets in boxing history when Buster Douglas knocked him out in Tokyo. 2 years later, Tyson was convicted of rape and sentenced to prison. When he returned to boxing in 1995, he quickly regained championship belts by stopping Frank Bruno and Bruce Seldon. But the aura of invincibility was gone. Then came Evander Holyfield. Holyfield exposed Tyson's growing weaknesses: frustration, predictability, and a dangerous lack of emotional control. Their first fight ended with Tyson being stopped in the 11th round. The rematch became one of the most infamous nights in sports history when Tyson bit Holyfield's ear and was disqualified. His boxing license was revoked, and his reputation hit rock bottom. Many believed Mike Tyson was finished. When Tyson was reinstated, every fight became a referendum on his legacy. Was he still the most dangerous heavyweight in the world? Or was he simply a fading superstar living off his legendary name? He blasted through Francois Botha and Julius Francis, showing flashes of the old Tyson. The hand speed was still there, the knockout power was still terrifying, but there were lingering doubts. Tyson looked physically imposing, yet mentally he remained unpredictable. He could end a fight with a single punch, but he could also unravel without warning. That volatility made every Tyson appearance must-see television. Fans were not just tuning in to see whether he would win. They were tuning in because anything could happen when Mike Tyson stepped into the ring. Standing across from him in Las Vegas was Orlin Norris, a former cruiserweight champion and a seasoned veteran with more than 60 professional fights. Norris was intelligent, durable, and technically sound. He understood how to survive against dangerous punchers. But he was also undersized for the heavyweight division and lacked the power to keep Tyson honest. On paper, he looked like the perfect comeback opponent, experienced enough to appear credible, skilled enough to test Tyson, but not dangerous enough to be considered a real threat. Most analysts saw Norris as a tune-up fight, another name Tyson would knock off on his way toward bigger paydays and potential showdowns with champions like Lennox Lewis. For Norris, this was the opportunity of a lifetime. A victory over Tyson would instantly change the course of his career, but almost no one believed he could pull it off. The betting odds were overwhelmingly in Tyson's favor. The crowd expected violence, the commentators expected a knockout, and based on Tyson's physical gifts, that expectation was entirely reasonable. But boxing has a way of producing nights that no one can predict. And on July 29, 1999, the world was about to witness one of the strangest endings the sport had ever seen. When fight night arrived, the atmosphere inside the MGM Grand in Las Vegas felt electric. Whenever Mike Tyson fought, there was a sense that the ordinary rules of boxing no longer applied. The crowd wasn't settling in for a careful tactical contest. They were waiting for an explosion. Tyson entered the arena to a thunderous reaction. Dressed in his trademark black trunks and black shoes, he looked as intimidating as ever. There was no robe with flashy colors, no unnecessary theatrics. Just Tyson, marching toward the ring with the same cold expression that had terrified heavyweights for more than a decade. Even after everything that had happened in his career, Tyson still possessed a unique aura. The moment he stepped between the ropes, all attention shifted to him. Across the ring, Orlin Norris appeared calm and composed. He had been underestimated before, and he knew his only chance was to stay disciplined. Norris wasn't there to trade punches in the center of the ring. His strategy was to survive the early storm, frustrate Tyson, and hope the fight extended into the later rounds. As the introductions concluded, the contrast between the two men was impossible to ignore. Tyson was compact, muscular, and radiating menace. Norris looked relaxed, focused, and determined to remain patient. The bell rang, and Tyson immediately took control of the center of the ring. There was no feeling out process, no cautious probing. Tyson came forward with the same aggressive intent that had defined his rise to greatness. He bobbed his head from side to side, slipped past Norris's jab, and looked for opportunities to unleash his trademark hooks. Norris circled along the ropes, trying to create distance. Whenever Tyson got close, Norris tied him up and leaned on him to disrupt his rhythm. It was a sensible strategy. But even in those opening moments, Tyson looked dangerous. His feet were quick. His reactions were sharp. And every punch carried the threat of ending the fight instantly. Tyson landed several hard shots to the body and head. Norris absorbed them, but he was already being forced into survival mode. He was reacting rather than dictating. The pace was exactly what Tyson wanted. The crowd roared each time Tyson let his hands go. Norris, to his credit, stayed composed. He moved, clinched, and attempted to buy time. But he never established his jab or found a rhythm. Tyson's pressure was too intense. As the first round approached its final seconds, Tyson appeared firmly in control. Norris had survived, but he had offered little offense and had been unable to slow Tyson's momentum. Then, just as the bell sounded, everything changed. Tyson threw a left hook a split second after the round had officially ended. The punch connected. Norris stumbled backward awkwardly. As he tried to regain his balance, his right knee twisted beneath him. He collapsed to the canvas in pain. The crowd fell silent. At first, many assumed Norris was simply trying to recover from the late shot. But as the ringside doctor examined him, it became clear that something was seriously wrong. Norris could not continue. And after less than 3 minutes of action, one of the most anticipated fights of Tyson's comeback was over. What happened next only added to the confusion. As Orlin Norris remained on the canvas, the crowd struggled to understand what they had just witnessed. Tyson had landed a punch after the bell, but it wasn't a devastating knockout blow. Norris had not crumpled from the impact itself. Instead, he appeared to injure his knee as he stumbled backward trying to regain his footing. Inside the ring, emotions escalated quickly. Mike Tyson looked frustrated. From his perspective, the punch had been thrown in the heat of the moment, only a fraction of a second after the bell. Tyson had not intentionally tried to injure Norris, but his lack of control had once again placed him at the center of controversy. The ringside doctor examined Norris for several minutes. The veteran fighter tried to stand, but his right knee buckled immediately. Whatever damage had occurred, it was serious enough to prevent him from continuing. The referee had a difficult decision to make. If Norris had been unable to continue because of a legal punch, Tyson would have been awarded a technical knockout. If the injury had resulted directly from the after-the-bell punch, Tyson could potentially be disqualified. But because the injury appeared to occur when Norris twisted his knee while falling backward, the situation was far from straightforward. After consulting with officials, the ruling was announced. The fight was declared a no contest. No winner, no loser. Just one completed round and a result that satisfied almost no one. The crowd responded with a mixture of boos and disbelief. Fans who had paid to see Tyson's explosive comeback were left with more questions than answers. Had Norris genuinely suffered a legitimate injury? Was Tyson on the verge of scoring a knockout anyway? Could the fight have been one-sided had it continued? Those questions fueled debate immediately after the bout and continued to divide boxing fans decades later. Tyson, visibly irritated, argued that Norris had used the injury as a way out. Many supporters agreed, believing Norris realized he was being overwhelmed and seized an opportunity to avoid punishment. Norris insisted the injury was real. Medical examinations later confirmed that he had indeed damaged his knee. While opinions differed on whether the late punch caused the injury directly, there was little doubt that Norris was physically unable to continue. In a technical sense, the official decision was reasonable. The injury occurred after an illegal punch, but not necessarily because of the punch itself. A no contest acknowledged the unusual circumstances without awarding either fighter a victory or a loss. Still, the decision only reinforced Tyson's reputation for chaos. Even when he appeared focused and dangerous, Controversy seemed to follow him. The fight lasted less than 3 minutes, yet it managed to capture everything that defined Tyson's later career. Explosive talent, unpredictable behavior, and endings that felt more like drama than sport. And perhaps the strangest part of all was this. For those brief moments in the opening round, Tyson had looked genuinely impressive, sharp, fast, and every bit as dangerous as the fans had hoped. For a fight that officially lasted just 1 round, Tyson versus Norris left behind an unusually clear impression. In those few minutes, Mike Tyson looked like a man with bad intentions. His head movement was sharp, his feet were quick, and his punches had the same explosive force that had made him the most feared heavyweight in boxing. He cut off the ring efficiently, slipped inside Norris's jab, and attacked with the kind of urgency that suggested he wanted to end the night as early as possible. Orlin Norris was doing what experienced veterans often do against dangerous punchers. He moved, clinched, and tried to slow the pace. It was a sensible plan, but Tyson's pressure prevented him from establishing any rhythm. Norris spent almost the entire round reacting rather than creating offense. That is why so many observers came away with the same conclusion. If the fight had continued, Tyson was the overwhelming favorite to win. Norris was durable and technically sound, but he was smaller, less powerful, and physically outmatched. His best chance was to survive the early rounds and hope Tyson began to tire. Based on what unfolded in round 1, that seemed unlikely. A knockout in the middle rounds felt like the most probable outcome. And yet, because the fight ended so abruptly, the official record shows no winner. That strange result has helped keep this bout alive in boxing history. Tyson has had many memorable fights, but few are remembered for being as unusual as this one. It wasn't a classic. It wasn't a war. It was a bizarre incident that ended before the real story could unfold. In many ways, that made it the perfect snapshot of Tyson's later career. The talent was still there. The power was still frightening. But controversy remained close behind. Tyson could dominate a fight and still leave the ring surrounded by confusion. He could look spectacular and chaotic at the same time. That contradiction is what made him such a compelling figure. Even after his peak years had passed, Tyson remained boxing's most unpredictable attraction. Fans tuned in because they knew they were watching a fighter capable of producing either a devastating knockout or a moment of complete disorder. Sometimes, as in this fight, they got both. Today, Tyson versus Norris stands as one of the strangest no contests the heavyweight division has ever seen. A fight that lasted less than 3 minutes still sparks debate because it seemed to confirm 2 truths at once. Mike Tyson was still extraordinarily dangerous. And whenever Mike Tyson stepped into the ring, absolutely anything could happen. And that is what makes Mike Tyson versus Orlin Norris such a fascinating chapter in boxing history. It was a fight that barely lasted 3 minutes, yet it managed to capture everything that made Mike Tyson one of the most compelling athletes the sport has ever seen. The explosive power, the constant sense of danger, and the chaos that always seemed to follow him. For a brief moment, Tyson looked sharp, focused, and ready to remind the world why he had once been the most feared heavyweight on the planet. But instead of a definitive knockout, the night ended in controversy, confusion, and one of the strangest no contests in boxing history. As for Orlin Norris, his performance is often forgotten, but his role in this bizarre story remains unforgettable. Whether you believe he was genuinely injured or think Tyson was on his way to an inevitable stoppage, there is no denying that this fight remains one of the most unusual endings the sport has ever produced. More than 20 years later, fans still debate what would have happened if the fight had continued. Would Tyson have scored another spectacular knockout? Could Norris have weathered the storm? Or was this strange ending simply the only outcome possible when Mike Tyson was involved? We will never know. But that uncertainty is exactly why this fight continues to be remembered. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know in the comments which bizarre boxing fight I should cover next. And if you love deep dives into the most dramatic, controversial, and unforgettable moments in boxing history, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Thanks for watching.